Hello to everybody, and wholeheartedly welcome to this Overshoot Day. Very interesting discussion what we are going to have here today, organized by Global Footprint Network and Globe EU. And the Global Footprint Network actually calculated that we consumed 1.5 planets per every year. But that was so late than 10 years ago. And nowadays, actually, we are overseeing that figure. And the newest calculated date is to be July 29th. So, what shall we do in politics? What shall we do as civil society, education, and business to solve this crisis? This is why we are here today, and I'm extremely happy to welcome the students and teachers who are from the 4 European schools in Brussels, and you are certainly dealing with these questions. Especially welcome Matthew Pai, who is there on the backstage and who has coached this group for this event. He is a philosophy professor and the founder of Climate Academy, which provides a systemic understanding of the current sustainability crisis for students from ages 14 to 18. So, I'm welcoming also the representatives of the Dutch Climate Academy and their tutor Gert. This is important, valuable work what you do. And now, when we are moving up to the Earth Overshoot Day and its significance, I would like to turn firstly to my very good colleague Bas Eickhout, working here quite some time.
Indeed.
In the same line, trying to speed up the politics on this track. And then, of course, Catherine and the whole group of the students we are having here. You are the main stars of the event. And for the first questions, I think it goes to Darina Alexandrova.
I should introduce myself. Yeah, my name is Darina, and in 5 years I'll be 21 years old.
My name is Anne-Cécile, and in 5 years I'll be 23 years old.
Je m'appelle Maya, dans 5 ans, en 2027, j'aurai 23 ans. D'ici là, nous aurons probablement atteint une augmentation de la température de 1,5 degré et nous aurons atteint le point de non-retour.
So you are young. So young.
My first question is for you. So the Earth Day is based on the ecological footprint, and it does not include all limited natural resources that are being extracted. Currently, the material resource consumption per year per person in the EU is an average of 19 tons. Does the EU have an actual objective to limit the resource consumption by a certain percentage per year or even by a certain percentage by 2030? If so, could you tell me what it is? Because, for example, Finland has to reduce its consumption by 5.7%, and it is still increasing by 1.5%.
Yes, indeed. We have discussed this topic both with the Commission, inside the Commission, and in the Parliament very much. And when we had the last circular economy package, what the Parliament was trying to insist is the binding targets for resource efficiency and cutting down the consumption of resources. When we had the first report, actually 10 years ago, as you remember, then we demanded 30% of a reduction of resource consumption by 2030 and to be within planetary boundaries 2050. This time we did not succeed, saying that, but that gives the figure. So roughly this 10% reduction of the footprint would be needed to all of the member states to achieve that. What that would mean, you need to look the whole life cycle analysis, not only what we produce and consume here, but what we are actually exporting as problems, as waste, for example, and what we are importing as food or energy or others. So I usually tend to say we should be setting the 10 factor as this kind of a finger touch target, tenfold resource efficiency with 10 of the resources by 2050.
2050. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm asking the next question to you, Madame Catherine Chabot. So globally, only 8.6% of resources are being recycled, and this number is going down. And the main reason for this is that it is now cheaper to mine raw material than to recycle it. So what is the EU doing to counter that?
Yeah, it's a big issue. You know that the main goal of EU today it's the Green Deal. Yeah, our goal, our main goal, is to get the climate neutrality by 2050, and we have several packages to implement this goal, and one of them is the circular economy package, and it's very interesting, your question, because the question is, why is it more expensive to recycle? And I think and that's what we are we will try with our colleagues to put in the package, the circular economy package. We have to consider the projects at every stage of their lives, and we have to begin by the eco-design, because today, projects are not made to be in the spirit, in the mind, to be deconstructed. You understand? So we have to simplify the materials we use, etc. And after, when the projects are bought by people, etc., we have to reuse them. There's a lot of things that we can do. For example, we have to limit the planned obsolescence of the projects, etc. And at the end of their life, we have to facilitate the deconstruction, and we have to imagine, to identify the flows, and to help those projects and the materials to go in the circular, to be recycled, etc. And probably the last thing, because we have a lot of things to do as citizens, and we have, I think, in the legislation, to not only to length messages and to take regulations for the states, but also to make people aware of their duty, because we have a duty as consumers, and probably we have to promote, and I'm trying to promote this idea of sufficiency, not only efficiency for energy, but also for products and materials.
Can I ask another question? Because you talked about the goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2050, but we can see that the EU has still a long way to go. For example, I was talking about the extraction of raw materials, and the EU average today is 19 tons per person in the year, and it should technically go down to 7.
To 7. So a third. We have to reduce a third. Yeah. And what is your question?
Well, there's such a long way to go. Then, for example, us, the youth, a lot of people are becoming climate anxious because they are feeling that it is not going fast enough, and there's this feeling of that we cannot do much now, and the battle is kind of already lost.
Yeah. So your question is?
How can we
accelerate and we must integrate, as I said, that 80% of the projects environmental impacts are determined at the design phase. So it's from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And so key industries can reduce their CO2 emissions significantly by rethinking the design phase, promoting the eco-design as well. But I think we also, as I said already, we have a mix between regulations and make people aware of their consumption, because and do we need or what we both, and my anxious for me is if the day we won't find the materials on land, we will go in the deep sea trying and I know that, for example, le cuivre, comme on dit le cuivre en anglais, le cuivre, the material, copper. We have just 40 years of reserve of, and even if we recycle all the copper, we won't have enough after. So that's just to conclude. A good message. I'm trying to give an optimistic message. I think as a former sailor, competitor, I know that under the pressure you find the solution, and it develops the creative. People are more creative, and I think we live a very special time of the Earth life, and I think it's our common goal to find solution. And I know that we can do it because under pressure, human being can do a lot of things. So I'm still optimistic.
Thank you. My next question is to you, Basaikot. The war in Ukraine has been brutal and led to various economic sanctions. It has also created monumental profits for the fossil fuel industry due to the spike in energy prices. There has never been a decrease in overall global greenhouse emissions. This crisis may be an opportunity. Is this not a critical moment to redirect huge flows of funds into green energies infrastructures?
Thanks. I would say the quick answer is yes, absolutely. But you're right in a way, right? It has already been a critical moment. If you just look at what all the heads of state, all our presidents are saying is, we want to be climate neutral, we want to be fully circular, but they then always pretend that that is a kind of an easy thing. This means that we are going to really redirect our entire economy. We have built a fossil economy that we need to change away from. That will not be easy. I mean, I don't think any politician that would say that's an easy one is really lying. But it also means that a massive investment program is needed. And here, I come from the Netherlands, so I have to apologize for my government, unfortunately, who has always had the attitude, no, investments you do nationally and not European. So every time when there is the question, and by the way, your government from Finland is doing a bit the same indeed. So we need a European investment program, because the only way to really get away from our fossil dependency is if we are truly looking at a European infrastructure, a new European energy infrastructure. And that is requiring a massive European investment program. When the corona crisis hit Europe, finally there was some move to have a European answer to it, and even the Dutch agreed with it. But if you then look at what are we proposing there, it was a huge battle that 37% would go to environment in general. I think we need another plan like that now, given the war in Ukraine. But there, of course, it should be very central, the energy transition. But I think what is also important, because I'm critical on my government, but you're French, right? You're from France, yes, right? I think what we see quite often is that a lot of member states of the EU think, okay, the Green Deal is a European objective, it's a European priority. But we are not going to do this change of our economy if not all the 27 capitals are fully on board. And here, to be very honest, also the French government is still not seeing that you need a European approach to also energy infrastructure. If there is one big problem, is that there are hardly links in our energy infrastructure between Spain and France. And that is because France doesn't want to do that because they are afraid of cheap renewables from Spain getting into the energy market of France. So here I also really pressure Paris that if you want a solution, it also requires that the 27 capitals also come up with European solutions and European ideas, and that 27 national approaches to your own energy market will not work. So there is a European challenge, and yes, we have to fight for that, and there some of our governments are a problem, but we also really need to change the vision of 27 capitals who still think that a national solution can bring a solution. We need a European approach truly from all the capitals as well.
Thank you.
My second question is for Madame Chabot. So in order to have a sustainable development, the International Resource Panel has concluded that resource consumption has to be reduced to 7 tons per capita by 2050. For the EU, this means that it is almost 3 times its limit and should reduce 3% per year starting from this year. However, if this objective is not in line with the conclusions of the RRP, what will be done about that?
I've already answered to the question. I think,
Could you elaborate a bit more?
yeah, what should be done for less to reduce the consumption somewhere?
Yes, I understand that, but if we're not able to match the objective, what do we do then? Keep reducing?
What do you think about that?
I
What
think-
should be your proposals?
My proposal?
Yeah.
I think we need bigger change systemic-wise, and I think we need to have more policies, more pledges
Yeah.
to reduce that, whether that be for bigger companies, whether that be for countries, for European countries, whether that be for all the EU member states. I think we need a much bigger and radical system change, and to force these countries, whether it is through policies, whether it is through pledges, so that they can't get out of it. Because I think that, unfortunately, it is very possible that this objective is not met. And we want to know if this doesn't happen, what will happen? What's the next step if we can't meet that objective?
Yeah. I think we not only have to regulate, but we also have to make the awareness to higher. And I think, as I said before, for example, you know, in the industry that I know a little bit more than the others, the pleasure boats, and it's incredible because they know that they have to reduce consumption, etc. But the way they are going is not the good one. They develop a lot. Today we build a lot of very big boats, very large, that will take place big places in the harbour, and I think we need to have a more ecosystemic approach, and we need not to think circular economy, eco design, etc., only on projects, but also on on appelle ça, circular industries. You know, in a cities, you have to imagine all the flows of projects, etc., and not only to think about the projects, but the way we live, the way we, the relationships between the industries, and today, for example, in our big ports, maritime ports, there are already circular economies that have been developed, energy resources and comes from, are shared, etc., etc. And I think, yeah, as a legislator, we have to push for the ambition. As Beth said, I think we will be stronger together. We will be stronger together. And the main problem we have is we know probably that we will be stronger together, but we don't align our policies in that way. And a last point, I really think we have to use the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, as backbones of our policies, because, and we don't use them. They should be very interesting. We are working on a report here in the Parliament on the SDGs, and because here in all our policies we said we have to be aligned, etc. But if we take the 17th SDGs as the backbone of our policies, we will imagine our future, rethink our future in a more integrated approach, because one of our problems is we try to find solutions just in silos. All the problems yeah. So we should use the SDGs as the backbone of our policies, I think.
When you mentioned the maritime boats, what would be a good policy, or how do we bring it to a systemic level to make a change to reduce their production, for example? How would you view the systemic change in that aspect?
There are a lot of things to do, change the materials we use to build the boat. We have to share the boats when we don't really need to have all those boats. And it will be, I think, a real ecological problem in the next years, because there's a very, the tourism, the nautical tourism is more and more, is growing. And I think we have to share. And I think your generation is ready to that, not mine. It's a real problem of the way we live as consumers, and I think you have to help us to change.
When you mentioned the SDGs and how policies should be made based on that, do you know if any policies are being worked on, or like what's stopping policymakers from using those SDGs?
Can you repeat your question?
Yes, sorry. You mentioned how we should create policies based on the SDGs, and I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you knew if some policies are already being worked on, which are based on the SDGs, or if you know why they're not using the SDGs.
You know, the SDGs are a universal framework.
Yeah.
They have been launched by the United Nations in 2015, and today, all the states use them, the private sector use them, the industry use them, also the cities, etc. So, and there's something very interesting in the work by the SDSN, the Sustainable Development Solution Network. They measure how all the SDGs and how the states are progress with the SDGs. And I think there are a lot of examples. In France, we had a report given to the Prime Minister by a member of the French Parliament, ODD tout est lié, everything is linked. And the problem of our policies is generally we, as I said, we're just trying to resolve problems by problems and not in a systemic approach. For example, when we speak to the fishermen and asking them to fish more, not to fish too much fishes in the, in the same time, if we don't move on the pollution that comes from 80% from the land, it doesn't. Our message is not hearable, you understand, by the fishermen, because they said the problem of the fishes is not only our nets, etc. It's also the problem of the pollution that comes from the land, and on those topics that I'm working on here in the Parliament, we generally don't make the link between land and seas. On the LULUCF, for example, we just think about land.
Yeah.
But what about the marine and coastal ecosystems that are much more equivalent in production to as carbon sink? So I think one of the main message I'm trying to push here is to have a much more integrated approach on all our policies, even in the Fit for 55 package, because we are working on FuelEU Maritime, for example, if I staying, and we will have to produce hydrogen, but where are we going to produce the green hydrogen? Probably we can use the ports, because there's a very big places on the port to develop renewables, to produce hydrogen there. But it's another file. It's the file affair and red. And the problem is we have to have more links between our legislations.
Thank you. Just to wrap up this, because I know I've been asking a lot of questions. So you think that if we don't match this objective, the answer would be to make more policies based on the SDGs?
Yeah, it's one of and we have to accelerate the legislative process here, because the problem I've seen everywhere is we have the solution. Communities have the solutions, but the way we implement them is not at the right rhythm. We have to accelerate so here we are able, we saw with the COVID crisis and with the war today that we are able to accelerate our process. So I'm a new MEP here, so I'm convinced that we have to accelerate our legislative process, because it's too long to wait. For some things, we are in the good rhythm. For the others, no.
Thank you. I think my question has already well been discussed, so I'm going to leave the floor to Maya for her question.
I think we have to finish.
Et vous n'avez pas d'autres questions pour passer?
No, but we're running out of time.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
But can I just
Sadly.
maybe to conclude, right? Because sometimes politics looks too slow, right? And you're absolutely right that you are feeling that urgency. Kind of, why is it not happening? I think what is very important is that politicians that want to achieve some change need to build a kind of a majority to reach that change. It's much easier to lay back and let things happen as they always happen. So being conservative is easier than if you want to have change. And this really means we need to build our majorities. And here around this table, we probably agree to a large extent. But we need to convince the majority to accept that change. And change is scary for people, but we need the change. And I think this is the battle that we need to do together. And we need your pressure. I think you might get tired like, oh, there they come again, we need you. But the point is, we will be pushing here for change. But we need the majorities. We live in a democracy where the majorities need to feel that urgency as well. And then it really helps if they feel the pressure from you guys. Really, that's so crucial. So please keep on doing that.
Don't worry about it, we'll be here.
Good.
And actually, this is what I would like to join with my good colleagues, Catherine and Chabot, as Bas said, very much sharing the ideas, and Bas Eickhout. To create the pressure, you need public opinion, you need media, you need awareness. Because there's always those lobbies telling the conservative side of the politicians,
possible.
don't do, not necessary, can't do, it's not possible. So there's even stronger pressure for people who do not want to move, not to move. And the change needs the movement.
Yeah.
And so now I would like to thank you for this very good and informative discussion. Of course, Bas, Catherine,
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
and then our wonderful students with excellent questions. And not only that, but I picked your background materials and you are excellently briefed. So thanks to Darina Alexandrova, Anne-Céline Dupontel, and Maya Leir Pinon-Sol.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
And we'll continue in a short while.
I think we have
Merci.